Well, neighborhood today is what I consider is someone that you gotta lock your doors, lock your cars. This is on the rise, whether it used to be that way. It used to be you didn't have to lock your doors in your houses. But today, well, I'm of age now. In today's world, you got to do these things because the crimes are so high here in Albany, Georgia, born and raised here. But that's just how it is today, and we definitely have to take those things in consideration. Locking your doors and locking your houses, not letting people know where you at when you're going. But other than that, Albany is a pretty place to be, to live at. If you got certain things you want to do here, that's fine. But you just have to be careful. Crime rates are high.
My neighborhood is definitely everything that surrounds me in terms of families and businesses in the area. It's everyone moving through this immediate area. So sometimes that's people who actually live here, work here, play here, but then sometimes it's just people who are passing through.
Okay.
My neighborhood, I live on the south side. It's not the best side of town. There's always gunshots, and somebody seems to think it's the 4th of July all year round. But I mean, it's not a whole lot of violence, just a lot of gunshots. I don't really see the police, so I don't know if it's just fun fire, which is never fun fire, but the cops are never called, so I don't think anybody's really wounded. But I wouldn't just say it's the best neighborhood in Albany, but it's not the worst.
So how has the neighborhood changed in your lifetime?
Well, I've only been right there for 2 years, but as far as the south side altogether, it actually looks a lot better than it used to. That part does, because I grew up on the south side and it was more like just a dope hole, really. Mostly crack. A lot of crack cocaine was being sold. The neighborhood has really gone down though. A lot of the houses are torn down, some are being rebuilt, and some are just torn down and just turned to land. But it could be better, but it's not as bad as it used to be.
I consider my neighborhood my mission field, no matter where I am, in my home, in my neighborhood, at work, with associates that I meet. My neighborhood is my mission field, wherever.
Susan, what do you think?
Well, typically I think my neighborhood is just where I live. Like my neighbors, my surrounding neighbors are around me. That's when somebody says, your neighborhood, that's what I think.
Would you consider the people that you text with, even if they don't live next door, the people you're on social media with, are those people part of your neighborhood? Are they your neighbors?
Not literally, but you are connected with them and you interact with them like maybe you would walk across to your next door neighbor and have tea on the porch. I can communicate with my relatives who live in other states through Facebook or texting. So yeah, you can still be neighborly.
Tea on the porch with people?
You can virtually. You can FaceTime them while you have your tea.
There you go.
Well, when I was younger, everybody played together. Everybody came outside. Everybody did yard work together. Today, you don't see that anymore. Time had got where everybody loved the dollar money. Everybody got where it's all about me, selfishness, something that we wouldn't raise that way. Society just turned you into being that person.
So you just heard some stuff. Some of that, I think, probably for you sounded pretty foreign to your experience of the neighborhood. Some of it, though, probably sounded pretty familiar to your experience of the neighborhood. But it just introduces this whole concept of what is the neighborhood? How do different people experience it today? How has it changed? Where is it going? And how do we respond as Christ people in the neighborhood? Well, in my neighborhood growing up, probably our favorite thing to do as kids was to play hide and seek. That was just what we did in our neighborhood. If we had free minutes, we would start playing hide and seek. And you do this in your neighborhood? Did you play hide and seek growing up? You always tried to find that perfect spot, right? The perfect hiding spot where nobody could find you. And you could hear the kid counting off in the distance, 47, 48, 49, Or if you were in my neighborhood, we always cheated. 47, 48, 49, 50. And then they said those words before they came, and you know them. Ready or not, here I come. Ready or not, here I come. And they meant it, right? They weren't messing around. Whether you had the perfect hiding spot or not, they were coming. Ready or not, here I come. The world has changed a lot since we played hide and seek. A lot. The neighborhood I live in now is not like the neighborhood I grew up in. And the neighborhood I grew up in is not now like it was when I was growing up in it. A lot's changed. And I feel like the changes came just like that kid counting in the game of hide and seek. The changes didn't wait until I had the perfect hiding spot. They just came. Ready or not, here I come. Some changes came slowly. In my neighborhood, like the gentleman that started this whole thing off, this video, we didn't lock our doors at all. We didn't lock our cars. We didn't have to. Did you all lock your houses from day one way back in the neighborhood? Probably not. I mean, that just wasn't the common thing. Again, you didn't have to do it. There was no threat, or at least you didn't feel a threat. And like that guy, we helped rake each other's leaves in the fall. I mean, just go around to somebody else's yard and rake up those big piles of leaves. And usually we jump in the leaves and scatter them out and then rake them all up again, do it over and over again. But we were helping each other out. We knew all the people who lived around us. We would spend time. We didn't have sweet tea where I grew up, but we had other things. We would actually spend time on each other's back porch in the summertime. Just go over, hey, how you doing? Because we all knew each other and we all liked each other. We were friends. We were comfortable and safe and secure in our group. We loved it. But then slowly those things started to change. You started to hear about the break-in down the street. Whether it was their house or their car. Did you hear? They were in the house when it happened. So we started to lock that front door and the back door and the car door because we had to, or at least we felt like we had to. And instead of spending a lot of time with the neighbors, we started to spend a little more time in our house talking about the neighbors. Did you hear what happened at so-and-so's house? Can you believe that they're doing that? What are they doing over there? I remember even looking out the window at them. What are they doing? What are they doing? Should they be doing that? Why didn't they invite us to do that? Things changed slowly. Ready or not, here I come. They changed anyway. But those things changed slowly, but then some things seemed to come out of thin air. I remember going to a friend's house, and there was this thing on the kitchen table. I'd never seen it before. It was big. I said, "What is that?" He said, "Oh, that's my dad's cell phone. It's my dad's new cell phone." I'd never even heard of a cell phone. This thing was about the size of a pineapple. It had a thing on it, a big antenna. He had to charge it for like 5 days to talk for 20 minutes. But it was cool. And how does it even? Do we talk into this end? It was unreal. It was great. And next were bag phones. Everybody started getting bag phones and carrying those around. Do you have a bag phone? The bag phone. You could call anybody from anywhere on the planet and it worked perfectly. Or so it was supposed to. So the things changed. When I got married in 2005, my wife and I went and bought cordless phones for our house's landline. And that was a big deal because we could walk around. It wasn't like when I was a kid and we had the cord and you could get from the kitchen to partway into the next room before you had to turn back and go, and then the cord would get all wrapped up and twisted up. You remember that. You had to work it out and twist it out. So we had cordless phones. In 2008, when my son was born, I took pictures of him, the first pictures of my son in the world, on my brand new flip phone. And it was actually a phone that I kind of slid up, and it had a keyboard. I could write text messages, which was really cool. And in 2010, I took pictures of my daughter being born on the same flip phone. It wasn't until 2012 that I got one of these, which was great. And at the time, I used it for making phone calls, sending texts, occasionally taking a picture or a video. But now, this thing is like a fifth appendage. It goes with me everywhere. It is on me 24/7. And I don't just use it to make phone calls or send texts or occasionally take a picture. I take digital photos, digital videos, record my entire life, do Facebook posts, keep up with the news, hit the internet. Sometimes I even tweet on this. It goes around with me all the time. The world has changed. Ready or not, here I come. Now, how did I respond to all those changes? In my neighborhood, in the world? I did what most people I know did. I complained about it. It was bad. It was terrible stuff. I longed for the way things used to be. I talked about it. Remember when we didn't have to lock our doors? Remember that? Remember when people cared about each other? And the new technology, that was just the worst. In some ways, I still kind of feel like it is. But I would say stuff all the time. Look at that family when we go out to eat. Have you done that? You go out to eat and you judge everybody else because they're all on their phones. The family of four are all reading their phone together. You said they go out as a family and they're all stuck on their phones. And the kids nowadays, they used to go out and play, but now they're stuck in front of the screen at home. And in the church, this is like enemy number one, man. I've heard so many sermons about it. I've given so many sermons about it. One of my proudest lines, and just the zinger that I love, and I have used it in this pulpit already since I've been the pastor here, was, "For God so loved the world that He did not send a text." Heck yeah, Jesus met us face to face, flesh and blood, in the real world, not in some fake digital world. Jesus didn't FaceTime us. He didn't like our status and tell us He would keep us in our prayers or send a thumbs up emoji or whatever. So put down your phones and step away from your laptops and talk to real people for once. Maybe even go out into your neighborhood and talk to people you don't talk to anymore. And all God's people said, "Amen." Ha! I know you feel it. I know you've said it. Again, you say it. We feel these things, but you know what? What did all that complaining and all that awesome preaching, what did it accomplish? Nothing. I mean, my blood pressure went up, and I felt really good about myself for a little while. But the youth in the back of the church, not right now, so don't look at them. But they kept right on texting and reading their Bible on their phones during the service. And the people kept running right home to their laptops, hit that internet. And a lot of them didn't even go outside and talk to their neighbors. The world has changed. It's changed. It's going to keep right on changing too. And sometimes that makes me angry. And the truth is, it makes me angry because it makes me sad. I miss the old neighborhood. I miss the way things used to be. I knew how to live in that world. I knew how to navigate it. It was home. It was comfortable. And I know a lot of you feel that same way too, because we've talked about it. We've had those conversations. But yet, it's still here. Ready or not, here I come. So what do we do with it? If the old neighborhood's not coming back, and it's not, and if the digital world isn't going away, and it's not, then how are we going to live as followers of Jesus Christ in this new world? To answer that question, we may have to start by embracing a little bigger definition of the word neighborhood. Christian author Diana Butler Bass writes, "The biggest issue of the 21st century is not necessarily the decline of the neighborhood." And you heard about that in the video. Southside Albany, things have actually gotten better. Things have improved. It might not necessarily be the decline of the neighborhood. The issue might be that we have all moved to a new neighborhood and have not learned how to get along with the new neighbors. I think she's onto something. Even if we didn't move, even if you stayed in exactly the same spot your entire life, it's like the neighborhood moved away from you and a new neighborhood got put in right around you. Have you felt that? Have you kind of noticed that? But where is the new neighborhood? This is where today's scripture lessons can lead us in the right direction. You have them all printed in your bulletin, so I encourage you to take them out so you can look at them as we go through them. And we start at the beginning of the worship service with the call to worship, Psalm 24, verse 1. And here it is, the earth is the Lord's. The earth is the Lord's and all that is in it, the world and all who live in it. That's straightforward enough. Just based on that one line from the Bible, answer the question for me, how much of this world belongs to God? All of it. Great. And what people living in the world belong to God? All. All people. So all people in the world belong to God. The entire world belongs to God. Now look at Colossians chapter 1, verses 15 through 17. And count, as we go through it, how many times the word all appears in that. Here we go. Jesus is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For in him all things in heaven and on earth were created, things visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or powers, all things have been created through him and for him. He himself is before all things, and in him all things hold together. Did you get a number? 5. 5 times in 2 sentences, the author says the word all. All creation, all things, all things, all things, all things. Do you think he's trying to make a point here? All things, all things, all things. Jesus is at the center of all things everywhere. And finally, John chapter 1 from the Message, starting at the first sentence in the second paragraph. The Word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighborhood. The Word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighborhood. And what's that verse saying? If Psalm 24 is right, and the world and all that's in it belongs to God, and in all things were created through Jesus, then what's the neighborhood mean in John's gospel? Is John saying the Word became flesh and moved to 555 Bible Lane, Nazareth, Galilee, 14421? No. No, it didn't mean Jesus moves to a specific physical location. It's talking about Jesus moving into the world. Jesus moving into all creation. The one through whom all things were created, all things hold together, all things come together, moving into all of the world for all people. The Word became flesh and entered into everything. Ready or not, here I come. So if this is God's world and Jesus really is Lord of all things, then maybe it's time for a bigger definition of the word neighborhood. The neighborhood used to just mean where you lived. And it still does. That hasn't changed. That still is your neighborhood. But it's also bigger than that. Today, the changes that have happened are allowing us to see that the neighborhood is any place where we meet God and meet other people. Any place where we meet God and meet other people. Because all the world belongs to God. And Jesus is Lord of all of it, so we can meet God anywhere and everywhere and in anyone at any time. So is your neighborhood where you live? Yes, it is. And your neighborhood are the folks who live around you. But that's not all. Your neighborhood is downtown Albany. Your neighborhood is South Albany. Your neighborhood's East Albany. Your neighborhood is Publix and Harvey's and Walmart. Your neighborhood is everywhere you meet God and meet other people and live your life. And that means that it's not just physical places, right? Because Jesus is Lord of all. So whether you realize it or not, you're carrying the new neighborhood around with you all day, everywhere. You may not be able to touch the digital world, but you absolutely meet people there, don't you? They're not fake people that you're talking to. They're real. They're real. Unless they're spam bots trying to get into your email or something and ruin your computer. But the people you're interacting with on the internet are real folks, right? And you meet God there too. And you might not think that right away, but anybody who's received an encouraging text in a tough time and felt the connection with somebody else, you met God there. God worked through that. Anybody who's been overwhelmed by the number of people who give words of support on a Facebook page when you're going through a rough time, you've met God there in these places because Jesus is Lord of all of it. He's Lord of the physical world. He's Lord of the virtual, digital world. It's our neighborhood. It's all our neighborhood. The physical world and the digital world and all the places in both, because Jesus Christ is Lord of all the world and everything in it. And if you're like me, that's definitely not the way that I've approached life or thought about the way things are. That's a totally new way to think about it. But if you can just try it on, like a new shirt. You might be used to cotton, but I don't know, maybe that's not a good example. So maybe the polyester is good, but maybe you shouldn't wear the polyester. But you know what I'm saying. Just, try it on. Try it on. You haven't tried it before. Just try it on. Try looking at the places you go as your neighborhood. Whether that's the cookie shop or the golf course or a Facebook group. Neighborhood. And if you can see that, if you can start to see where God might be working, where Jesus might be moving in all of these places, it becomes really, really good news. Really good news, because it's the good news that this world and everything in it belongs to Jesus and has the potential to be redeemed and transformed by His loving power. Nothing is beyond His reach. Nothing. And of course, it's not all roses. We're going to talk about that more as we go through this series, and especially the Bible studies. There are real dangers in the new neighborhood. You got to look out. You got to look out. Like any new neighborhood, you can get in trouble if you're not careful. But if you can try, and if we can try to see this world with new eyes, there are endless possibilities of what God can do through us. We are living in a new world. We're living in a new neighborhood full of opportunities to love our neighbors as ourselves and bless them and connect them to God. For too long, God's people have stayed inside their houses, stayed inside their churches, spending more time talking about the neighbors than interacting with them. It's like we're playing hide and seek, and we're trying to find the perfect spot before they come and get us. But Jesus stopped counting a long time ago. Ready or not, here I come. He came. He moved into the neighborhood. I can't wait to see where He takes us in our neighborhood. Amen.